Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Expium's Cloud Migration webinar. My name is Steve Terrelmus. I'll be walking you through the webinar today. Just fair warning, I have been putting this webinar together here quite a bit over the last few days and few weeks, and it seems like every day I'm adding more stuff to this webinar because things have been changing so rapidly. So I am hoping we can get through all this material here in 1 hour. My goal is to get through the material in about 50 minutes and then leave about 5 or 10 minutes for questions at the end. So we have got a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm going to jump right in. There is a Q&A section on the Zoom meeting. If you have questions, feel free to put them in there during the webinar, but we'll probably get to those Q&A in order at the end of the webinar for as much time as we have available to us. Okay, so let's get started. My name is Steve Terrelmus again. I am a managing consultant at Expium. Expium is a platinum solutions partner for Atlassian, and we work with a lot of clients around cloud migration and other things. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Expium in a few minutes here, but if you are interested in knowing a little bit more about me, you can hover over this little box here and you can, with your phone, and that will connect you to my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to invite me as a friend to LinkedIn, but that's a little bit more information about me. But let's jump right into the good stuff here. So as you know, Atlassian has been promoting cloud migrations now for probably about 2 to 3 years, and many customers of theirs have been moving and successfully moving over to the cloud. However, just recently, Atlassian made another announcement where they said that they are going to be completely deprecating servers. So here is a timeline of how Atlassian is going to be parsing that out. And this is, I'm going to show you guys real quick. This is the link to the announcement that Atlassian came out with, accelerating our journey to the cloud together. And there's a bunch of great information in here. I am going to paste this link into the chat so you guys can reference it. So let me just do that real quick. And then I'm going to go back to our timeline. So the timeline that Atlassian has given us here is going to be starting in October 16th, of course, with the announcement of the deprecation of server. And then from there on February 2nd, 2021, they are going to end new license sales for server. And also there is an expectation that there will be some pricing changes that will take place on February 2nd. Then in a year later, they are going to end all upgrades and downgrades of server, which means that you really can't increase your user count or downgrade your user count on server. And then a year after that is when they're going to completely end new sales. And then on February 2nd, 2024 is when they have announced they're going to end support. Now, if you have any exposure to the server platform, you know that it's kind of like the old software structure where you can keep using it as long as it doesn't break, kind of for as long as you want to, but it's not going to include any updates. And so after a while, it's going to be a bit of an old clunky system. So you really should start thinking right away about migrating off of server if you want to. And we're going to talk a lot about the options that you have with migrating here in a minute. But I do want to identify for you this top timeline here. So Expium has migrated a number of folks to cloud, and we want to kind of make sure people understand the expectations that you should have when you're looking at migrating. If you look at this timeline at the top, it's going to align with the timeline at the bottom, only the top timeline is going to reference roughly user count in your instances. So at a high level, if you have a low user count of 100 or 300 users, you're probably going to be able to migrate successfully to cloud in very short order, probably within a month or two. As you get higher into maybe 500, 600 users or into 1,000 users or beyond, your migration is probably going to take some more time. Now, these numbers here are really just a high-level estimate. There can be a lot of flex in these numbers depending on some other factors over here. For example, if you have a lot of add-ons, then each of those add-ons are going to need to be considered, not only from the purpose of what you will be able to do in cloud versus server, but also from the perspective, do you still need to keep those add-ons, or is there a different add-on that would be more preferable for you when you move to cloud? So that can cause some movement in this expectation of your roadmap timeline here. Also, things like automation. How much automation do you have in your system? And how much scripting do you have in your system? If you've got a server version or a data center version and you're looking to migrate to the cloud, you need to take a good look at what kind of dependency you have on those automation and scripting, because that may not be available on cloud, or there may be some changes there on cloud as well. Um, Also, third-party integrations. So how many times are you taking your Atlassian platform, regardless of whether it's Jira, Confluence, or whatever, and tying it to some sort of third-party background application through the APIs or things like that? That's going to need a lot of consideration. And then multiple instances. Do you have one instance of Atlassian products, or do you have multiple instances? If you've got multiple instances, you can look at building out a cloud federated system. But again, all of those things, as well as the other factors, are going to take some time, and you want to keep that in mind. Expium, as I mentioned, has helped a lot of people out with cloud migration. What we do, just at a real high level, when we support people with a cloud migration, is we will set up a migration war room basically for you. And we even use Atlassian tools to do that. For example, we'll have a migration space in Confluence. And in that migration space, we'll have a migration dashboard with key information. We'll have a migration runbook for you. We'll have a migration roadmap. And we'll even use that space to capture all the migration artifacts and items like that. So that's just a real high level overview of how we manage the migrations. And I'll be talking more about that later on in the webinar. But keep this roadmap in mind with Atlassian and with your existing platform. Now, we're going to be diving into, throughout the next hour, a lot of factors around this roadmap. So keep this roadmap in mind. I may come back to it and reference it later on in the presentation, but all these factors that I'm talking about here are going to be the things that we're going to be talking about throughout the rest of this migration and exploring those in a lot more detail. I'm breaking up this presentation into a couple of different categories. We're going to be talking about platforms, first of all, and then we're going to be talking about the benefits of cloud migration. Now, obviously, there's specific benefits to cloud migration, like system cost savings, right? But there are additional benefits to cloud migration as well, and we're going to be getting into those additional benefits also. Then we're going to spend some time talking about the differences between the cloud platform and the server or the data center platform. And I'm going to be showing you some of those differences as well. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about the roadmap and what are some of the ways that people are migrating, the different avenues that people are taking when they migrate, depending on these factors and depending on how many users they have and things like that. Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's first of all start off talking a little bit about platforms. So go back over here. Oh, I'm sorry. I did want to capture this slide real quick. In the cloud migration announcement that Atlassian made, it's key to understand what's in scope and what's out of scope. So the Jira products are all going to be in scope. So will Bitbucket, Bamboo, and Crowd, and any application that's in the Atlassian marketplace that is owned by Atlassian is going to be within scope of the migration. And third-party platforms will probably start to shut down their server application also. So keep that in mind. Bamboo currently doesn't exist on data center, but it will be very soon. Also, Journey to Cloud that is out of scope is going to be Fisheye and Crucible. Basically, they're going to be remaining on maintenance mode for the time being. There's not a lot of folks that are still using Fisheye and Crucible. I expect that may wane over time, but as of right now, there is not a plan to migrate those to cloud. All right, let's talk a little bit about platform. So let me explain what I mean by platform. So platform is where your product lives, like where your instance of Atlassian lives. And there are three main platforms that you can live on. The two on-prem platforms are going to be what's called server or data center. And then, of course, there's a cloud platform. So when we think about the on-prem platforms, we have to be careful of the terminology we're using, because on-prem can mean a lot of different things, and cloud cloud or hosted can mean a lot of different things as well. So let me kind of break that out for you real quick. So looking at on-prem, server and data center are the two on-prem licensing applications that are available. Server is the one that is going to be deprecated starting next year. Now, when you have an on-prem platform like server or data center, you may hold that on-prem platform within your company, like a server bank that's sitting in a closet somewhere in your building. Or that on-prem platform may actually be a server bank that you are renting space on, like on a hosted platform like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or something like that, right? So all of that is what we loosely refer to as on-premises or on-prem platform. And then again, those two variations are going to be data center and cloud and server, and server is going to be deprecated. When we talk about cloud, cloud is not necessarily a hosted on-prem platform like AWS, but cloud is the Atlassian cloud solution that is more defined as a software as a service solution. So keep those differentiations in mind. We're going to touch on that a little bit more as we go through this. But that is kind of what we mean by platforms and the different platforms that exist today, as well as the deprecation of the on-prem server platform right now. Also, when you move to cloud, there's a thing called cloud tiers. So I don't want to confuse cloud tiers with platforms. We're going to talk about cloud tiers later on in the presentation. That's like your free, your standard, your premium, your enterprise tiers. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, so first of all, when we talk about the ongoing solutions that will be available for platforms, we're now going to be looking at cloud, which is Atlassian software as a service platform, and data center, which is the existing on-prem solution. So what is the difference between cloud and data center? Or why would you want to move from server to data center? So one of the things I do want to highlight for you, and I'm going to post this in chat as well, is the difference between the data center solution that's out there. So data center is a self-managed product solution. Usually the way people differentiate things like data center and server is that data center is going to give you more server products as well as like a load balancer. So you're actually getting better performance, and you're also getting more uptime, because if one of the servers in the server bank goes down, the other servers can compensate for it. So that's kind of the idea of data center, but it is a self-managed product. So let me post for you in the chat this website, which talks a little bit about that data center product that's available from Atlassian. Also, what are some of the things that data center gives you that server does not? So there's another website here in Atlassian's support website where you can see the comparison between data center and server, the things that are available on data center that are not available on server. Again, server is going to be the one that's going to be deprecated in 2021. So I'm going to post this in the chat as well. These are all just reference links that you can grab while we're on the webinar here and save them somewhere so that you can reference them later on. Okay, so that is data center and cloud, especially data center. What is data center? How does it compare to server? Let me go back now and talk a little bit about cloud some more. So cloud has these things called tier levels. What are the different tier levels? So when you migrate to cloud, you are going to have an option of what tier you're on. So think loosely of tiers as being what products and applications are available to you at certain levels of tiers. And there's 4 tiers in the cloud platform. And those are free is the first one, then standard, then premium, and then the 4th one is enterprise. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail around these. There's a lot of information on this type of activity. So I do want to make sure that we get everything in today. I may not be able to get into all of the information. Of course, you guys have our contact information. I gave it to you early on. I'm going to give it to you again at the end. Don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions. We can help you answer what the best solution is for you, the best platform, and the best tier level. But let me talk a little bit about these tiers. So first of all, let me show you the difference in pricing around tiers. So if you look at, I'm just going to show Jira, but when you think about it right now, the only products for Atlassian that have tier pricing in cloud are Jira, Jira Service Desk, and Confluence. But let's just real quickly look at Jira pricing. So this is just a high level pricing guide. Again, if you're looking at pricing out different licenses and tiers, come talk to us. We can usually help you out with a lot of the confusion here, as well as give you some advice as to what should work for you, what shouldn't work for you, and things like that. But I'm just wanting to give you a high level overview of these 4 levels. Now, free is going to be, of course, free, 0 cost, but usually this is going to be a very low level platform. Oftentimes when people use a tool like Jira for their personal use, they'll use a free one. Or if you've just started using Jira and you want to explore it, you'll use a free one. But it's only limited to 10 users, and there's a lot of things that are not available on free, like some permissioning and things like that is going to be turned off in the free platform. Then the next one is going to be standard, and this is the classic cloud platform that people have been using for the last, I don't know how many years, probably 5 or 10 years. And that is going to include the majority of the features that are available that people have come to know in cloud. Now, Premium came on board about a year or so ago. That is going to create some additional features that are available. For example, when you get into road mapping, there is a much bigger opportunity in road mapping that you have advanced road mapping, which does a lot more stuff than the normal road maps. We won't get into that on this call, but just know that that's one of the big features. Also, you get things like a free sandbox environment and some additional Atlassian support and things like that. And then the enterprise solution is going to include even more things like data residency and other security measures that you can use also. Just so you know, high level, this is your maximum user limit on each of these. The minimum user limit is 10 or 50 or 25 for the first 3. But when you get into enterprise, the minimum is going to be 801 to 1,000 user level. So unless you have over 800 users, you are not eligible for enterprise. Again, just a real quick splash in the pond on this page. If you have questions on pricing, don't hesitate and come talk to us. We can help you out with understanding all of that. Okay, so let me go back and talk a little bit more about these platforms. Okay, so first of all, when you move to cloud, if you've been on an on-prem solution like server or data center, you can set up like a dev instance. So for the first time, cloud is allowing a free sandbox instance if you have a premium or enterprise tier. However, something to keep in mind, that sandbox instance is going to be only for your products that are premium or enterprise. For example, if you have a Jira Software premium cloud tier and your Confluence is standard, then Confluence would not have the sandbox. It would not be turned on in the free sandbox, if that makes sense. Now, you could have a free Jira Software sandbox and then pay for Confluence as a Confluence sandbox because your primary Confluence platform is standard, but it won't be turned on automatically for free. Other things too, for instance, let me just give you another example to keep an eye on. And again, in all of these things, talk to us about the details. If you are going to the enterprise platform, one of the great benefits of enterprise is that the access is free. Access is your user provisioning tool, your SSO tool. That is free for enterprise, but it's only going to be free for the products that are on the enterprise. So again, if you have Jira on enterprise, your user provisioning tool of Access will be free for all Jira users. However, if you don't, then if you don't have Access or enterprise available for something like Confluence, then it won't be free for those users that are only on Confluence. Here's a great example. Confluence is a a content management tool, right? So you might have more users on Confluence than you do on Jira, which is like your work action tool. So if you've got 200 users on Confluence and 100 users on Jira, then your Access user tier is going to be 100 users, which is going to represent the 100 users in Confluence that are not in Jira if Jira is on enterprise. So that's something else to keep in mind. There are some nuances around this that you want to prepare yourself for. And so again, talk to us if you have any questions on that. Okay. Cloud evolution. So why are we moving to cloud? What are the benefits of moving to cloud? We're going to get into the benefits here in a minute, but I do want to talk a little bit about the evolution of cloud migration and what has gotten us to this point. So first of all, we have a basic industry evolution, right? The idea of moving to a software as a service platform has been happening for the last, I don't know, decade on across the industry, right? When you sign on to your Gmail account, or when you go to your bank account, or you go to any online application that you use for your personal services, you are going on to a software as a service platform. And so that has evolved across the board in the industry. And Atlassian is now moving and accelerating their activity to bring their customers to the advantages of software as a service. However, there's another facet to this, and that is a licensing model. So the other thing that's been evolving in the industry and also in the investment industry is going to be around the idea of subscription services. So for instance, if you go back 10, 15 years, you might go to a Family Video or a Blockbuster to rent a video. Now you go to Netflix. And when you rent on Netflix, you don't just pay for the rental of that video. You actually pay a subscription service, and that subscription service is the same every month. This is actually a business platform model that is happening across many industries. And so Atlassian is now aligning their corporation with this business platform model as well. So keep that in mind when you think about this migration to cloud. There's really two motivating factors. There's the industry movement into software as a service, but there's also the business and industry movement into subscription model. So going back to our platforms again, server is not a subscription model. Data center is. Cloud is a subscription model, and it is also a software as a service. Okay, so when you're thinking about moving from server to data center or cloud, you're really only talking about the second point here. You're changing from a non-subscription to a subscription model. If you also want to change to a software as a service model, you want to do the full migration from on-prem onto a cloud platform. Now, it's not entirely clear how data center is going to be affected by the industry move to software as a service. It's not currently software as a service. So keep that in mind. We may see Atlassian making changes to data center over the next year or two as the industry continues to change and flex around this model. Okay, so that's talk about platforms. I want to talk about benefits next to the cloud migration. But before we do, I promised you guys I'd tell you a little bit about Expium. So Expium is a platinum solutions partner. There's only about 20 platinum solution partners in America. You have to have a very high level in order to be a platinum solution partner. You have to have a wide number of your consultants as certified Atlassian certified people. You have to have a certain number of sales in order to achieve that level. And so you're talking about the highest level of partner for Atlassian. Atlassian has an interesting business model. They build great software, but they depend exclusively on their partners for managing and helping customers out with that software. If you called Atlassian today and said, hey, we need to migrate to cloud, can you help us out with that? The first thing they would do is send you an email connecting you to a partner like Expium, because they lean heavily on their partners, probably more so than any other software company I've ever looked at. They lean heavily on their partners for making sure that their clients have success with their tool. So here are the 4 areas that Atlassian can help you out. First of all, training. We have a very exhaustive training platform. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you a slide where you can access all of our upcoming training seminars and other webinars that we're doing. But we do training all the time with customers. And oftentimes that is the first engagement that we have with a customer. A quick 2-3 day training class does a great job of helping you understand who we are, helping us understand who you are, building trust, so then we can move into something of a larger nature, which might be something like consulting. So consulting can be a very broad avenue. It can be helping you out with your instance. It can be helping you out determine best practices or governance or cleanup. It can be just standing up an entire instance for you if you've never had an instance of Atlassian tools. It can help be riding kind of along with you in your cloud migration that you're doing to give you consulting needs for your cloud migration. Wide variety of activities that we do in consulting. Basically anything you need with Atlassian products, we can help you with consulting. Sometimes customers find that the Atlassian products in of themselves are not sufficient for what they want to do, especially around the area of UX or API, right? We want to see something sitting on top of our Atlassian instance that is more friendly to our customers or more friendly to our users, or we need some back-end custom configuration, or maybe we even need some custom automation within the tool itself. If that's the case, then we can offer custom development as well. Expium has a sister company called Oasis Digital. They are a front-end software development company, and they've been around for over 15 years. We actually utilize them quite a bit for some of our custom development work, but we can do any kind of custom build-out software that you need to align with Atlassian products or to tie into Atlassian products. And then finally, licensing. Licensing is something that obviously you do directly with Atlassian, but having a license agent like Expium to help you is tremendously beneficial, especially when figuring out some of the complexity around the licensing. You've heard a lot of it today already that I've talked about, but there's a lot more that's there. You really want to have a partner walking alongside with you to help scope out your licensing needs. What can we consolidate? How can we save money? What is the best licensing solutions for us? If we are going into the marketplace for applications, what applications are good for us if we're on data center versus if we're on cloud? Having a partner walking the road with you and helping you with that is very comforting, and it's very helpful. And also we can produce for you license quotes usually a lot quicker than if you're trying to get Atlassian's attention, because again, oftentimes Atlassian is not used to dealing directly with customers. Okay, so that's a little bit more about us. Again, expium.com is our website. I'm going to give you my email address at the end of the webinar. You can reach out to me and learn a little bit more about us. But if you have a minute today, definitely go out and check out our website. There's a lot of great information out there. Okay, let's talk about more of this cloud migration stuff. Cloud migrations benefits. Now, I name this benefits plus. Okay, there are going to be some basic benefits for you when you migrate to cloud. First of all, system and database cleanup. So let me back up a second. When you migrate to cloud, you're going to see some system administration cost benefits, and we'll get into that in just a second. But the other thing that you're going to see is you're going to see an opportunity as you migrate to cloud to maybe clean up a bunch of stuff in your database. So for example, maybe your database looks a little bit something like this. Okay, so this is the Jira Administrative View Screen Schemes. And if you scroll down this list, you're going to find that there are hundreds and hundreds of screen schemes out there. Many of them have the exact same name. As an admin, you have no idea what's in these screen schemes, how one's different from another, and it literally goes on and on and on. If you have been using Jira for more than 5 years, you probably have a database that looks like this. The point is that when you are migrating to the cloud, it's a great opportunity because you already probably have a migration team. It's a great opportunity to maybe attack some of these problems that you've had in the past in your database and start to clean some of this up. So I kind of call this a benefit plus. That's one example. Also, just basic maintenance costs, right? So you're going to be reducing operating expenses for system administrators when you migrate to the cloud. There's just going to be a cost that you're going to be saving. You're also going to be reducing CapEx around server hardware, right? So if you are currently hosting your server platform on site or with a company like that, is going to be a savings that you're going to have as well. Also, you're going to be able to eliminate time and effort around version upgrades. So you're not going to have as many version upgrades, or really when you migrate to the cloud, it's a dynamic live instance. So there's really not versions around there at all, unless you move to an enterprise, in which case one of the benefits of enterprise tier is that you can control your version upgrading. But you're not going to have to worry about, oh, we need to migrate to the next version, and then something we did in the system is causing it to fail. So now we need to spend 2 or 3 days with our system admin and Jira admin in a room trying to hammer out how to save or how to get this upgrade to work, right? All of that is not going to be there anymore when you migrate to cloud. Also, Atlassian has actually put together a cost ownership calculator that partners like Expium can use to help customers see what some of their savings are. So when you actually go in, you can actually see that if you're migrating to cloud and you've got about 2,000 users, this is again a very high estimate. There's a lot of nuances around this, but if you have 2,000 users and you're migrating to cloud, Atlassian's cost calculator estimates that you could save anywhere between half a million and I'm sorry, not 500 million, half a million and $750,000. That's actually a typo there. In $750,000 over a 3-year period. So you can save a lot of money as you migrate to cloud. That's $500,000 to $750,000, $750,000. Again, typo there on that. But keep that in mind. The basic savings just to migrating to cloud can be quite significant. So that's something also to keep in mind. All right, let's keep going here. Governance. So one of the other great benefit plus of moving to cloud is, again, it gives you an opportunity to better line up how you are managing things internally, like governance, right? How is your governance structured for things like scalable growth, open visibility, open communication? When you migrate from a server platform to a cloud platform, it creates, again, the momentum for a team, which then can be used as a governance team as well. Now, Expium actually helps companies work through governance activities as well. And so let me just show you real quick some of the things that we have done in the past with folks. So we help folks sometimes set up like a governance space where they can have their governing structure and their policies and their how-to articles and all that kind of stuff, as well as a governance project in Jira where they might have their different governing activities like policy changes or add-on purchases or system requests or things like that that are all being tracked. So if this idea of governance is something that you need, check out our website. We actually help folks out with that governance. But governance, adding a good governing structure is a tremendous benefit to doing a migration to cloud or something like that, because it kind of forces you into that conversation. Okay, let me go back to my presentation. Another benefit is going to be what I call realigning on value streams. So use your migration in your governance to review your team structures. For example, how are my teams set up in Jira? Are my teams set up along siloed activities? Are they set up along projects that start and stop every 3 or 6 months? Can I shift this? Can I shift this so that my teams are now aligned along value streams or products so that my teams become evergreen and they're actually more lean and more agile in ways like that? So all of this realignment around value streams is a tremendous opportunity. There can be huge values for cost savings and efficiency by removing onerous time tracking, like having every single individual employee managing their time tracking, replacing it with value stream or lean budgeting via evergreen teams. Things like that are conversations that are well worth having as you're going through this cloud migration. And then finally, of course, licensing improvement. And we've talked about this already several times, but I'll just mention it one more time here. Not only the idea of looking at your licenses and determining if there are better licenses and better licensing structures for you, also the idea of consolidating instances if you are going to be moving to a premium or an enterprise tier. That will allow you to eliminate certain sandbox instances that you have because you get that sandbox instance in those tiers. If you move to premium, you get a great add-on for free called Advanced Roadmaps. So that may allow you to eliminate planning tools that you've been purchasing out of the marketplace. Of course, migrating to enterprise tier allows you to have access, which eliminates costs around user provisioning, SSO, audit compliance, and things like that. So another big benefit plus to a cloud migration is going to be the licensing improvements, consolidation of licenses, and the money that you can save with those licenses. And of course, Expium is more than happy to help you out with that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the differences that you're going to see here in your cloud migration. We want to talk about some of the high-level differences, and then we want to talk about some of the UX differences, and then we'll get into the roadmap. So a lot of stuff here. So I am going to be moving really quickly through this section because my goal here is to give you just some flash snapshots of some of the differences that you're going to see. We have other webinars where we go into more detail on this, and if we do a cloud migration with you, we we will do whatever, the things we need to do, like user training and things like that, to make sure that you know how to handle these differences. What I want to do right now is give you that movie preview where in a very short period of time, I'm going to just be throwing a bunch of screens up in front of you just to give you an idea of some of the differences that are out there. Okay, first of all, marketplace app review. So basically, as we've talked about already, when we migrate to cloud, there's going to be some changes that you're going to want to do in applications. Why is that? Why can't I just keep the applications that I have right now? Well, the marketplace is changing, right? The people that build application in the marketplace, not just Atlassian, but third-party providers, they understand that there's a big migration happening across the industry to cloud and also to software subscription services like Data Center. So there's going to be some changes to the marketplace add-ons that are happening there. Also, we are seeing consolidation of marketplace vendors. So the marketplace has been around for a long time. This is a major shift that is having a significant impact on applications. And so oftentimes companies that own applications find it easier, or now find that now is the best time to sell the licenses on the applications that they have built to another third-party provider. And as a result, we've started to see some consolidation in the Atlassian marketplace around apps. This is a typical business industry thing you see. Whenever you see a shift in underlying principles in a business industry, oftentimes you see consolidation around that. Also, Atlassian has even purchased some applications directly out of the marketplace from third-party vendors. Two examples of those are Jira Automation and also Insight. Insight is a configuration management database tool. Atlassian has straight up bought those apps right out of the marketplace from those third-party providers. Some apps only exist for server and data center and do not exist yet for cloud. Or they do exist for cloud, but the functionality in the cloud version of the application is limited than the functionality in the server data center. So when you're doing this migration, you're going to want to look at those apps on both perspectives to make sure that they can still do what they've been doing for you all along. So that's something also to keep in mind. Cloud future updates. So there are some current cloud challenges that are really worth considering. Cloud is not always the same thing as on-prem. It's a different product in a way. The user experience is very similar. The functionality is very experienced, but the underlying product can be very different. So a couple of warnings when you're moving to cloud to prepare for. You'll notice early on in the presentation, I talked a lot about this idea of our timeline and why the timeline might be different depending on how many users you have and how many applications you have. A lot of that is because there are some things that are slightly different that Atlassian is still working through. And here are a couple of them just to give you a heads up. First of all, there's a general warning about cloud limitations to customized solutions, right? If you own the hardware, you have a lot more advantages there to building out custom solutions around that particular on-prem piece of software. When you move to the cloud, that's going to be a little bit more limited. You still have all the backend APIs in cloud, and there's still a lot of things you can do. But if you've got a lot of customized tools, customized APIs, customized automation, scripted automation tools, you're really going to want to look at those closely and make sure that you're prepared for the migration on cloud to that. A second one, and this is a big one, currently on cloud, you are only allowed to export 1,000 rows of a data set. So that is a limitation that exists on cloud. Atlassian knows about that. They are working through that, but just keep that in mind. If you are using something like Tempo timesheets and you have a massive amount of time cards that you have to export on a monthly basis or something like that, you will probably run into that limit. So keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind the fact that when you migrate to cloud, technically you're still on some server somewhere in the world, right? But this is a little bit, maybe a little bit confusing, but it's really an important point. If you have an on-prem solution like Data Center and you are pulling reports or running APIs off of Atlassian, that is coming from one piece of hardware that you own. When you migrate to cloud, your Atlassian tool is sitting on the Atlassian cloud solution. But if you have an application, the application may have functionality and data that is being run on the third-party cloud solution, which might be a different server. So suddenly now you might have a situation, not in all cases, but you might have a situation where you are pulling data from two different servers, where in the past you were just pulling it from your one single internal server. Okay, so that's something that needs to be looked at and considered as well. So keep an eye on that. Don't let that trip you up. Okay. User management differences. We're starting to run out of time here, so I really got to crank up my speed to make sure that we get through all this. But I just want to mention to you that once you get into user management in the cloud, it is significantly different than it is on server. So I want to give you guys some quick splash screens around the differences there. First of all, let me bring some screens over here. I've already got pulled up. Let's talk about groups. Okay, so groups are going to be different in cloud than they are in server. Notice you have groups like site admin, Jira administrator. In cloud, you actually have the same platform for multiple products. So cloud has a group like administrator that allows them to grant administrative rights to multiple products at the same time, like Jira and Confluence, right? And then the site administrator is going to be the person that has kind of that overarching administrative rights. In server, that was called, I think, the Jira system administrator. So there's going to be a variety of new groups that exist there, and you're going to need to understand what they are and what they can do. Also, there is now what's called a organization administrator. So if you are used to a cloud environment, you're probably used to seeing user management and billing and things like that over here. Up here, once you connect to a cloud instance, you are now going to have other features up here. And this is where access lives, is up here as well. And these are going to be your organization features. And you're going to have somebody called an organization administrator as well, that is going to be managing things like user provisioning and stuff like that. So that's something to keep in mind. You also have a variety of interesting, or what I like to call hidden groups that start showing up on the cloud instance. I'm now taking you to global permissions. If you're a system admin, you're familiar with this page. Here's your administer Jira global permission. Notice over here on the right-hand side, all of the unusual groups that are showing up here. And many of these groups didn't even show up over here on this group page, right? These are some of the special cloud groupings that show up. For example, Atlassian add-ons admin. This is a grouping that allows any add-on to do what it's supposed to do in the cloud environment. Trusted users. I'm going to get to this one in just a second. This is a special type of thing in cloud called user roles, not project roles that you're used to, but user roles. So trusted users. I'm going to get back to that in a second. System administrator. This is not your site admin or your system admin. This is a special group that's out there that allows Atlassian to log into your cloud-based system to do troubleshooting and things like that. So that kind of differences are out there in cloud as well. Okay, users. This is a really big point. I know I'm kind of getting into the details here, but I'm just trying to give you guys a lot of information on some of the differences. And again, come back to us on this. We talk about this in some of our other webinars. And of course, in all of our projects, we work through this stuff with you. But one thing I do want to point out that's super important to realize when you move to cloud, you as a user in cloud are managed, owned, and understood by Atlassian through your email. For example, if you look at our emails here, like brian.expium.com, Connor McNeil@expium.com, that is how Atlassian knows you on the cloud. Now, the reason why that's important is if you bring in user provisioning, any Atlassian instance that has been spun up from any user that has your domain name at the end of it is going to come into your user provisioning. For example, if you've got Bob over in the marketing department and he's spinning up a Trello instance and he's using your company name, all of a sudden, Bob is in that Trello instance is going to show up under user provisioning for the cloud. So that's something you have to keep in mind, and something that you definitely want to work through. Also, when you look at the individual users, you have a new feature for users called user roles. Again, this is not project roles. This is user roles. There are 3 user roles that exist in the cloud instance: basic, trusted, and site admin. Or I should say basic. Yeah, the basic one is going to be just normal user function. This is going to be typical to what a user can normally do that you're used to. Trusted is going to be admin products and project settings. So a trusted person is not going to be a site admin, but they are going to be able to do things like build projects in Jira and stuff like that. And then site admin is basically your high level Jira admin on the cloud. So those are some real quick high level user management differences between cloud that you're not going to see in data center or server. So I do want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Again, we can help you out with all of that stuff. The next thing I want to talk about is the UX differences between cloud and server or data center. There's a number of these too, so I'm going to run through these really quick again. So first one I want to point out to you is going to be your view screen. In the cloud, you have a different view screen. If you are used to server or data center, you're used to seeing a view screen where in the middle you've got some basic fields, and over on the right you've got some people and date fields, and then your logs like your comments and your time logs are down at the bottom. The new view screen moves all of the content fields right here in the center and all of the non-content fields over here on the right-hand side. Okay, because it does that, it includes all of your content fields in the view screen, and you no longer have what's known as the edit screen. It doesn't exist really anymore. So that's a key difference. That view screen difference also shows up on your Kanban boards as well. If you're familiar with Kanban boards, you know that when you click on a card on a Kanban board, you get that little kick out screen on the right-hand side. The new view screen brings that to the center here as a call out screen right here. So that's another something that's different as well. A big difference in cloud is you get these things called next-gen projects, okay? So next-gen projects are a special project that is available in cloud that has a lot more capabilities for users to build out than admins. They are tricky projects you want to be careful of because they give you a lot of freedom right in the beginning, but if you have a lot of complexity like workflow-based automation and things like that in the end, you're going to be stuck with a next gen project. So talk to somebody like Expium before you get into next gen projects. Next gen projects have things like roadmaps where you can actually, it's kind of a new paradigm for Jira. Instead of creating issues using the create button, you actually create issues right on top of the roadmap and start feeding them directly into the roadmap from there. Some pretty cool stuff with that. But again, there are some gotchas there that you want to be careful of. And we can talk about that if you're going down that path. Also, in next gen projects, you do have some really interesting automation features that are available for your admin, where your admin can go in and custom add fields to screens and things like that. So I won't get into that. We call that project management configuration. Just know that that's different out there as well. One of the products that's on cloud that is not on server or data center is the product called Jira Automation. This is a really neat tool that exists. It just allows you to build system-wide automation tools like close duplicate issues or create an issue on transition or things like that. Those are all available for free with your standard Jira Cloud platform. And so there you can build as many of these as you want into the tool. So that's a really great feature. And by the way, if you are interested in automation for Jira, Expium does have a YouTube video that gives you a 10-minute overview on that. I'm going to post that guy in the chat for you as well, so you guys can take that home with you and review that after the webinar also. But that is an application that is on Jira Cloud that is not on server or data center. So keep that in mind. And then finally, if you purchase cloud for premium or enterprise tiers, you get also what's called advanced roadmaps. Advanced roadmaps is a significant step up from the basic roadmap tool that you get with the next gen project. Advanced roadmaps is going to include things like capacity planning, dependencies, scheduling algorithms, different views that you can set up and things like that. We have entire webinars around planning with the Atlassian tools and using tools like advanced roadmaps. So I will not get into a lot of detail on that, but I did want to make sure you understood you're getting a bunch of tools with cloud that you don't get with server data center. Now, advanced roadmaps actually exists in the marketplace for data center. You can purchase it as an additional add-on, and Atlassian is telling us now that in 2021, they intend to roll advanced roadmaps into data center as part of the main product. But between you and me, don't expect that to happen free. I'm assuming that data center is probably going to increase in price as they're doing that as well. Just that's usually what happens when they do those kinds of things. Okay, in the last few minutes, I do want to talk really briefly about your getting a little bit more into the roadmap. So we talked about we talked a lot about all of these, the UX differences, next-gen projects, Jira automation, advanced roadmaps. Okay, so let's talk about roadmap. Now, what I want to talk about in this slide is the importance of understanding the different ways that you can migrate to cloud, okay? You're going to hear a lot of different things from people like Expium or from Atlassian themselves about migrating to cloud. You want to prepare yourself for the best route to do that successfully and safely so that you can have a good migration to cloud. Going back to my original roadmap slide I showed you, you remember I talked about the idea of different users or different things you're doing are going to affect how long it's going to take you to migrate. And this is what we're going to talk a little bit here. The first avenue on migrating to cloud is what's kind of called the lift and shift. This is the idea of on a Friday evening, a couple of admins stick around for the weekend with a couple of pizzas and a couple of cases of Coke, and they export the instance off of your server or data center and import it onto cloud, and everybody comes back on Monday morning and voila, it's all ripping and roaring, ready to go. Keep in mind a couple of things with this. First of all, you could do a one lift and shift. Like, if you've got a small instance with maybe 100 or 200 users, maybe a one weekend lift and shift will be successful, and that's all you'll need. But if you've got a major instance, you're probably going to want to have a sandbox instance where you're doing background dev lift and shifts until you have it right, and then you move everybody over at one time. This is typically recommended for small instances unless you're going to do tons of iterations on a sandbox instance. It's not recommended for instances heavily dependent on applications because you need to make sure you understand how those applications work. Otherwise, when people come in on Monday morning, nothing works. It's not recommended for instances that are behind on their versioning. And it's not recommended for instances with a lot of custom coding or complex configuration on their instance. So that's the lift and shift avenue. The next one is what I call the cloud migration app. Atlassian has provided a free app for customers that are moving to cloud called the Cloud Migration App. Basically, what it does is it allows you to step through your migration one at a time. It's a great tool. I'm just going to give you some caveats, though. It's a new tool. So there are some kinks that are still being worked out. Do some test runs on a sandbox instance, of course, before you apply something like this to prod. It has been known to create duplicate database elements, like a bunch of new roles or a bunch of new custom fields and things like that. There's some configuration that you can do to avoid that, but you need to research that configuration before you start using it. It is relatively new, so do treat it accordingly. I guarantee you this tool will get better over time, so familiarize yourself with it because it very well may be the best tool for you in the future as you think about other things that you're doing with migration. There are going to be some differences between Confluence and Jira. Confluence works really well with this tool right now. Jira still has some kinks that it's working out. Okay, here's another one that I call the manual or start over migration. What this is kind of the crazy idea of we've got a mess on our hands. There's too much going on. The best thing for us to do is wipe the table and start over clean. Now, as crazy as that sounds, sometimes it's actually a good thing, especially if you're implementing governance, you're realigning your teams along value streams, and you're really completely reconfiguring how you do things in tools like Jira and Confluence. Sometimes a fresh start is a good way to do it. This is for instances that need an overhaul. It's kind of the idea of burn it down and start over. It can have tremendous benefits for good governance and value stream organization. Again, do not attempt to do this without executive sponsorship or planning or training and team building work sessions. You're going to need a lot of coordination, vertical and horizontal on this. Even if you don't go with this option, all the things I mentioned above are going to be still highly valuable and should be considered as part of the migration. Also include the ability to create a project. So one of the good things about this is that you have the option to create new projects, copy issues over into the new instance, and then just let the old instance archive itself out of existence over time. Okay, and then finally, we have what I call the intentional or team migration. This is the idea of we are going to clean up and move teams over based on when they are ready. So we're going to spin up a cloud instance. We're going to take our best, strongest team that's got good governance and good alignment and everything. We're going to clean them up. We're going to move them over. We're going to make sure everything works. And once that's done and ready and good to go, we've now cleared maybe 70 or 80% of the hurdles that the rest of the organization is going to have. And then we start going from there with a second wave or a third wave or a fourth wave, growing each time to multiple teams, multiple users, and things like that. And so that can take, again, a little bit of extra time to do that. So all of that to basically take us back to the timeline that I mentioned in the original part of this presentation. These are the ideas that you want to keep in mind as you're going through that migration, because those are the things that are going to significantly affect your timeline. Okay, so I appreciate you guys hanging with me. I know I gave you a lot of stuff here today. This is some new stuff here. There's a lot of details here, and I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys a lot of great stuff. I'm going to give you one more splash slide here that's got my contact information, steve.terrelmus@xpm.com, as well as the QR code for our upcoming classes. And if you just hover your phone over the screen, it will pick up on that and show you some of our upcoming classes while I jump over to the Q&A section and see if I can grab some of these questions before we wrap up here for the day. Okay, I'm going to go through some of these. Maybe some of these I covered already. So let's see. What would you consider a lot of add-ons? Right, that's a great question. So I'm migrating to cloud. I've got 500 users. How many add-ons would put me in a position where I need to be careful? Okay, so if you've got, I'm going to answer this two ways. Number one, if you've got, say, maybe 5 or less add-ons, that is not what I would consider a lot of add-ons. A lot of add-ons, you're talking about more than 10. In fact, typically people don't have more than 20 or 30 add-ons. Those are some of the people that have been around for a long time. They have a huge instance. They kind of have an open philosophy as far as who can add add-ons into the instance. Usually I see most people are in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 add-ons if they've been using Atlassian products for a long time. But if you're over 10 add-ons, you probably are going to need to scrutinize those add-ons quite a bit. Also, type of add-on. How much are you dependent on customized activities around that add-on? That is another nuance that you want to think about as you're talking about these add-ons. Okay, another question. Most of the time I have to read the logs for debugging issues. For example, when I wrote a Groovy script, is this available in dev instances? That's a great question. Things like logging are going to be available in dev instances. Your dev instance in cloud is going to be the same as your prod instance. So whatever is available in prod is going to be available in dev. But again, it depends on when you get into things like Groovy scripts, you're going to want to really set up a sandbox instance and start testing that before you migrate everybody over, and also talk to us about it too. We've got some experience, a lot of experience with scripting. Like I mentioned, we even have a sister company that does a lot of dev work. So let us talk to you about that and we can help you navigate that. There's another question here. Most of the organization have an internal Active Directory as their internal user management tool. Can they use this with Jira Cloud? Yes, Jira Cloud can tie to Active Directories and multiple Active Directories the same way that on-prem instances do, like Data Center. Talk to us about that. We can help you set that up and get that going. It is going to, so there's going to be some nuances. You remember, I kind of flew through this quick, but you remember I talked about the Access user provisioning tool and how when you have user provisioning in cloud, Atlassian recognizes every user based on their email address, which means that as a result, anybody in your company that has an Atlassian product using that domain of your company's domain name is going to start showing up. So you're going to have to kind of work through that and figure that out and come up with different solutions if you are finding yourself getting charged for things that other people in other divisions of the company are creating, and how you're going to manage that. There are a lot of solutions around that. We can help you figure that out. Okay, let's see. Any other questions before we wrap up? We really ran through this fast. I appreciate you guys holding on through this. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to say, we got one more quick question. Will this recording slide pre-presentation be available? I should have said that early on. We get that question in almost every single class. I am going to indicate to you guys expium.com, and I'm going to put this in the chat line again. Expium.com is our website. And if you go there, you can see all kinds of information about us, the services we provide, the training we provide. Let me put this in the chat real quick as we're wrapping up, expium.com. That is our website. Also, go to YouTube. We have a channel on YouTube. You search on YouTube for Expium, you're going to find it. The channel on YouTube is where we post all of our webinars. It might take a week or so. It's got to go through our editing process, but once it's through, you should probably see this webinar on YouTube in about a week or so. Also, this is going to be a series of cloud migration webinars we're going to be doing. Our next one is not yet scheduled on our website, but we expect that we'll be doing these cloud migration webinars about once every other month, or maybe even more frequently, depending on how fast things are moving in the Atlassian ecosystem. Okay, so keep an eye on it, because the next time we do the webinar, to my own detriment, I'm probably going to have to redo this whole slide deck anyway. So keep an eye on our events, and you're gonna probably see some more webinars around cloud migration, as well as all the other activities that we've been doing. Okay, so before we wrap up, I'm going to throw that cloud migration slide back up there again, just in case you didn't get a chance to see it earlier. And this is, again, Atlassian's deprecation of server timeline, along with Expium's high level, again, very high level estimate of the timeline you're looking at to migrate based on your user count. And then, of course, don't forget that this can slide a lot depending on some of these other factors. Okay, thanks for listening today. I hope this was helpful. If we can service you guys in any way with any of your needs around consulting or licensing, even if all you have is licensing needs, let us know. We can help you out, maybe even save you some money on your licenses. But for now, this is Steve Terrelmus signing off, and I appreciate you guys hanging with me on this very fast webinar, and I hope to see you out there in the Atlassian adventures. Take care, everyone.